Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Graystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Graystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.
Alright, welcome back to the podcast, guys. Hope you've all had a good week. Had a lot of good feedback about the last episode. I think it was kind of a bit overdue. I think people were screaming at me for particularly the episode on investing. So if you haven't listened to that, check it out and let me know what you think. And if you're listening to this for the first time, this is the number one podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. And if you are listening for the first time, as I say, give it a little rating after you've listened to this. I really appreciate your feedback. If you give it a little thumbs up, 5-star review would be lovely. But also share it with people, because I've had a lot of reviews. If you go to the Always Free podcast review section on iTunes, you can read through all of the reviews there that I get each week. And I read every single one of them because it really reinforces the belief that I had when I started this podcast, and the belief of helping people, changing their lives and getting them to where they want to be. The whole message of Always Free is being who you want to be, and that's what it's doing. So it really is making a difference. It's great to see. So this week, I decided I was umming and ahhing about what to talk about this week, and I've been, since the beginning of this podcast, I've kind of been taking you through a little bit of a journey in order of my life, where I was, sort of where I come from, the epiphanies I had, the kind of mindset I developed, how I started to structure my finances, then I started to save, and then I started to invest, and then I started to grow my income. I built a business, and I've given tips on how to grow profitable businesses and how to start online businesses, and now I'm going a bit deeper down the line, and it really comes to when I started to trade. And a lot of people say, why, when you're going to talk about trading, you're a trader. And yeah, I am a trader, and for me, as many things that I do in terms of wealth creation and financial independence, it's another tool that's allowed me to live a lifestyle that I live. And the reason I haven't mentioned trading to this point is because there is an order in which you must do this stuff. If you had no money and you just went into trading, which a lot of people do, you haven't got the right mindset to speculate. And if you start chucking all your money into a red or black type situation, there is absolutely no way that you're going to survive a month. You just won't survive 30 days. In fact, there's a statistic from brokers that 90% of people that open trading accounts blow their money in 90 days. And 90% of people blow 90% of their capital in 90 days. And that really says it all. And it's because they haven't got the right mindset. They're kind of putting all their eggs in one basket, playing a game that they don't know they're in, and they're really gambling. So I kind of just want to take you back to that part of my life where, I wanted to replace my income still, and I had this plan to replace it. And I mentioned before that I got quite frustrated in the industry I was in. It was contracting, but I was in a technology business, and the technology was moving quicker than the contracting, and there was a lot of conflict, a lot of frustration, and I just didn't have any fulfillment. I was going to work every day solving problems that no one cared about, so there was no problem, right? So when you kind of try and do your best at a job and you feel proud of it, there was none of that. You couldn't feel proud of something that no one really cared about. So I was getting very, very frustrated, and I started looking around at different options, different speculations. And one thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to step down my lifestyle from where I was at, because I was pretty frugal. Okay, we'd always had a nice lifestyle. We always had nice holidays. We had nice things, but I was always raising my expenses at a level of my savings and investments. So I would never increase my debts unless I could increase my savings by the same amount. And because I was growing my income so much, that was allowing us to live a decent life. But what I didn't want to do, I just didn't want to step down, because I'd been very, very sensible with my money up until this point. I'd live in a very humble, we lived in a nice house, but it was a semi-detached cul-de-sac, 3-bedroom house. And there was many people at the time saying, Jay, in terms of what you're building here and your income, why do you still live in this house? And I want to actually recommend two books actually, if you haven't read these already: Millionaire Next Door and The Automatic Millionaire. If you read those books, if you haven't read those books, I highly recommend them. They're great. But I was kind of living this humble lifestyle because I had the bigger plan, I had the bigger vision, but I was getting sick of my industry. So I really, really wanted out, and I was saving. I was investing about 8 to 12%. I was getting about 8 to 12% per year return on my investments, which was good. I had this calculation that I was going to kind of grow my income. I was going to increase my savings and accelerate the whole thing, leave my job in about 10 years. But that weren't enough anymore. I was controlling my living expenses. I wasn't growing that. So the problem is I still had to go to work, and I was becoming more and more frustrated in an industry that I wanted to get out of. And I had this kind of compelling reason to want to get out. I just hated it. So what I did is I started looking around at speculation, and I looked at poker first. I was looking at online poker, and I looked at that for a long, long time, and I was really considering it. And then I was thinking about going to a casino and doing poker, and then I was looking at options trading. That was all over the place, all over the TV and the ads and all that. And I eventually saw this kind of advert for a little workshop on trading the financial markets or trading Forex. So I took a friend along to this little workshop, and it was in a hotel, and it was, run by this kind of, in hindsight, I know the guy was a complete sleazeball, probably never traded an account in his life, because I can spot them a mile off now. But the guy sold us a dream, said that you could leave your job and, sit on the beach with cocktails, and, it's easy, you've just got to get the mindset right and all the rest of it. So I signed up to the program, took the program, and that was the first in, a lot of money that I donated to learning how to trade the financial markets. But before I get into that, I just wanted to know that I was looking for something to get me out, right? So I didn't want another little side hustle. I just needed some breathing room. At this point, I couldn't even think about talking to other clients. My head was so full. I just wanted some time for me at that point. I just needed out. I needed to think. I couldn't see clearly. I was like, I need to get perspective again. I need to know, I need some time. I need some breathing room. So I was only looking at these kind of zero-sum models. I wasn't looking at positive-sum businesses. I wasn't looking at serving people. I was looking at just getting a win for me. And that's where I was at that point. I wanted something that was just pure liquid. I didn't want no loans. I didn't want no staff, no buildings, no rent, no products, no complaining clients. And I didn't want any overheads. And I also wanted to be mobile. Bearing in mind, I was running a business on full time whilst learning the new skills. So I didn't want something that was going to take up, to start a new business in the same sort of fashion, because that just wasn't going to work. I needed something I could be mobile, flexible with, learn on the side, and I didn't want to have too much outlay. But ultimately, I just wanted something that was flexible and built around my life. A business, I always think a business is there to serve you, right? You should be living, from the service your business provides you. You shouldn't just be going to work, slaving away in business all day, every day for the rest of your time, because we all start a business for the eventual benefits of freedom or more money, better life. So I wanted to do this episode on trading because, as I said at the beginning, there's an order in which you have to do this stuff. You have to control your expenses, then you have to get your money game right, and then you have to save that cash buffer, that cash cushion of 3 to 6 months living expenses, so that your mind isn't thinking about survival. And then, obviously, the more the better. The more you can save up, the better. 12 months is absolutely ideal. But then you can go and invest. I wouldn't even do passive investments until you've saved that buffer. And then what you want to do is you can take a portion of that allocation for your investments, a smaller portion, and then start to speculate, because your mind's right at that point. So that's what I did. I wasn't stupid when I went into trading in terms of gambling money I couldn't afford to lose. I was a businessman. I'd been in business years at that point, and I'd run my own business years at that point. I wasn't one of these stupid people that kind of didn't have any regard for how money works and how quickly you can lose it. I understood that. So I went into it with the right frame of mind. Did I know what to expect? No, of course not. And I ended up blowing around £40,000. So on various sharks and courses and, these scammers and gurus and just blowing money in the markets, not knowing what I was doing, I lost a lot of money, and I learnt the wrong way, I guess you could say. But I did turn it round. I learnt a lot about what didn't work, and I dedicated a lot of time to learning. I spent every night, every weekend I was in the Costa coffee shop, doing my testing, and I even got to know people in the coffee shop that were there on a Saturday. And every night I would come in, there's pictures of me asleep, that many times when my wife would come in, I'd be asleep, and she'd take a photo of me and send it to me the next day. And I remember those times very, very clearly. And it was a grind. It was a real grind. I used to get home from work at about 5 p.m. I used to, see the kids, have dinner, spend some time with my wife and my family. Then when they go to bed at about 10, half 10, my wife would go to bed about 10, half 10. I would start my new business then, my trading business then, and I would work from 10:30 till 1:30 in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning, and then I'd get up and do exactly the same thing again. It was a grind. But the thing is, the people that don't really realise is trading, that the actual skill of trading can be taught in a very, very short space of time. And I know that now. I didn't know it then. But you can actually teach someone to trade in a very, very short space of time. And here is the myth buster, right? There's absolutely no need to lose, in fact, spend any money. You don't have to spend a penny before you become a profitable trader. So it's actually zero risk. Despite what most people think about it being very, very risky, the actual learning to trade and getting into trading and becoming profitable, you don't actually have to spend a penny up to that point. Why do people lose so much money? Because they're eager to get the quick win. Therefore, they know that they have to gamble live money. If they didn't gamble live money, they wouldn't get they might not get the big win. Right? So when they're trading and learning using real money, the only thing they're after is a win, on the hope that that'll be it. They'll hit the big winner and that'll be it. And that is not trading as a business. That is pure gambling. And there's nothing wrong if you want to do that. Just like the dogs, the horses, the casinos, whatever you want to bet on, that's fine, as long as you know that you're just gambling and you've got money that you can afford to lose on that, no problem. But when people come to me and say, how much do I need to learn to trade, or to trade profitably, or how much am I expected to lose before I become good, my answer's zero. You do not have to spend a penny. Right? When you think about it, when you get into trading, you can open an account for free. You can get access to historical market data for free. Right? And this is all you have to do. You have to learn and understand how to read price. And I guess if you was going to have some expenses learning to trade, that's where it'd be. If you was going to pay for education, which I'd highly recommend, because if you've ever tried learning anything on YouTube or online, it takes you a lot longer. So you've got to weigh up kind of what your time's worth. But you could do that for free. Okay. So you need to have a kind of you need to have a logical mind, right? You need to see it as a business. You need to have a genuine interest in the market, the order flow of the market and the psychology behind that. But once you understand those technicals, which is about 20% of it, the rest is just psychology. And when you think about it, the reason I say you don't have to spend a penny is because you can test, once you understand how to read price, you test the strategy, you go back and test it over the last 10 years of data for free. You've then got the most solid business plan ever. It's not like a business plan in a shop where you have to rely on the geographics and the market downturn and the staff not turning up and it being a high suicide rate place and a high demographic of vegans or a high demographic of fitness freaks, or you just don't have to rely on any of that. So when you go into a bank to try and persuade the bank manager to give you a loan because of this business plan you've just drawn up, which all depends on all of those factors, well, with Forex, you've got black and white printed historical data of what's happened in the past. You've built rules about what happens and how that plays out over time. You know the probability of you being right based on historic data. You know to what percentage you're going to be right. You know your maximum loss, typically. You know your maximum drawdown period. And you also know your expected return on investment. You know that out of the bat and you haven't even spent a penny. And as long as you're treating it like a business, right? As long as you've got a logical mind and you see it as a business and there's a profit and loss and there's quiet spells and the profit isn't all made in one go. Like when you sell a cake, you get a profit and you get the overheads and you get the little cream off the top. Excuse the pun. But you don't get that in trading. Profit comes sporadically. So you can crack it. It's as simple as that. And eventually, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I knew that I could do it. I just learnt the hard way. And I don't want any of you guys to learn the hard way, obviously. But I knew that if I was doing 8 to 12% per year in my passive investments, and I could generate, based on my testing, I could generate around 30 to 40% on my speculation and my trading, and I could do that year on year on average, then that would increase my entire portfolio by about 20-25%, and I would be out of my job in about 5 years. And as it happens, I ended up leaving my job and completely replacing my income without having to deteriorate my lifestyle or step down my lifestyle in 3.5 years. And I think it was 2014, 2015 that I was into 2015 that I was completely to the penny, maintaining my lifestyle, which was a quite expensive lifestyle by that point, but it was completely covered by trading and investing returns. So the reason that people struggle is because they have no idea what they're doing in terms of managing the money once they become profitable. So I was able to trade full time at that point, and the reason that that's so hard to do, and I can see it so clearly now, but the reason it's so hard to trade full time is because, like in most businesses, they've got no idea what they're doing with their finances. They don't calculate the long game. There's so many businesses that they get all the money in, they have a good month or a good 2 months, they get to the end of the year, they've spent the tax, and the VAT return comes around and they've spent the VAT, and they've spent the corporation tax, and now they're stuffed. And that's when they go out of business, because the cash flow's low, and it's because they haven't budgeted for that long term. It's the same in your personal finances, right? I was talking about this earlier. When people work out their budgeting and their finances and their living expenses, what most people do is they just go through their bank statement for a month and they figure out what they've spent in a month, and then they just times that by 12. And that will be things like shopping, rent, your car, your mobile bill, your phone bill, your Sky bill, all that kind of stuff. And you'll just times that by 12. What they don't add in, because they think, I'll just grab that when I'll just afford that when it comes up, are the things that happen across the year, which need to be added into that budget. So things like hairdressers. You know, you might get your hair cut if you're married. The man might cost, I don't know, £15. The woman might cost £60, and that happens every 3 to 5 weeks. So you want to add that, times that up, and divide that by 12. The vet bills. You know, how often on average do you take your pet to the vets? How often on average do you have your car MOT'd and serviced? How often on average do you buy broken furniture replacements? All that kind of stuff. What they don't do is add that into the budget. And that's kind of what you have to do with trading. You have to, because my first year in trading, I did 78%. And when I tell people, yeah, I did 78%, they're like, whoa, 78%. And when people do that, I could have easily got 78%, and I could have gone, right, put the down payment on the Ferrari, let's go. But I didn't do that because I knew what the average expectation was over time. So the next year I did 21%. And the year after that I did 36%. And the year after that I did 32%. And it kind of averages out over time. And the way that you have to calculate your income from trading is spread out way over those averages. And that's what people don't do. They have a good time, they spend the good time. And that's why people go broke. It's no different from any other business. It's cash flow. So I was able to completely replace my income in 3.5 years. Now I look back, very, very little to do with skill. It's very, very, you learn a few things, a few strategies, historical patterns that have stood the test of time, that happen historically. You build rules around entries and capitalizing on those moves, and then you go and test it all to give you that psychological strength, just like pleasing the animal brain with the cash buffer. By testing, it's giving you confidence that system performs. You then go and tune it up, tweak it up, then you go and trade it live exactly how you tested it. And at that point, there's no need to even spend a penny. I'm not saying that trading is for everyone, and I know lots of traders listen to this podcast, but if you've got half a logical brain and you're fascinated by the psychological patterns in the market and the order flow of the market, and you're keen to start generating a higher return, and you genuinely want to learn, then give it a shot. There are a lot of hidden benefits to trading. You become more kind of objective. People know where they stand with you because you start thinking in terms of, well, it's if this, then that. So everything has to be objective. People like that. People like certainty. You become more thoughtful because you're thinking in terms of other market participants. How are they thinking? What are they looking at? And you start thinking in terms of how other people are thinking and understanding how other people are thinking. You start to think about the long game. You remove instant gratification. As I say, you're thinking about that much longer average over time, and that's a massive hidden benefit to trading. And you're happy being wrong. You learn just to accept that it's just a process and there's no wrong or right. In fact, a good trade is a trade that just met your plan rules instead of whether it's a good one you lost or won. A lot of people say, oh, that was a good trade, you won. Oh, that was a bad trade, you lost. Well, that's rubbish. If a trade met the rules that you've tested and it's profitable over time, then that's a good trade. But finally, just before we kind of finish off here, it really is the most rapid wealth acceleration vehicle I've ever known for the littlest time. I now spend about 20 minutes per night on my swing trading account, and that is it. That's why this podcast is called Always Free. When I got into that situation, whenever we'd have gatherings and people would arrange meetups or drinks out, it would all never evolve around my calendar. I would always be the one that went, yep, just let me know when you guys are available. I'm always free. And that's where the saying come from, always free. And that's why this podcast is called Always Free. But yeah, 20 minutes on my trading per night. And it's crazy because I see people go and get $100,000 loan to go to university to get a job that pays them 40 grand per year, and then they have to work for 45 years. But, it blows my mind because you could just stick that money into trading, learn how to trade, and you'd have the option of leaving your job in 4 years. So it's absolutely bizarre. But I thought I'd kind of give you a rounded explanation of how I got into trading and why. If you've got any questions on this, please leave a comment if you're able to leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the box. And I will be going in more depth in trading in later episodes, but I just kind of wanted to give you a general overview. I know a lot of you are asking, why did you get into trading? You know, what difference did it make to your life? And that's it, really. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode, guys. Please let me know if you did. Please give this a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with someone who would be interested in following this journey with us. And until next week, have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.